you doing? Okay, let's get started. Got a lot to talk about. I've had requests on my fishing setup and how I fish, which we'll do, but we need to start from the beginning. And the beginning starts with this one. So growing up as a kid, this is what I was given. This was my first reel. I mean, it doesn't work anymore because the gears are stripped out on it. I've lost a handle, but I still have the reel. The old Zebco 202. Used to go down to the lake down here down the road and used to catch crappie, used to catch black bass, used to catch catfish on this guy. Over the years, it's evolved into what I'm using now. So I still use a lot of old stuff. The only new reel that I do have is this Penn Fierce line, I think it is, Fierce 3. And I've only used this thing probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times out on the boat. I'm not saying anything bad about the reel, I just haven't used it that much. What I like about it is it's got a live line on it. You can let it feed out, you know. That's what none of these other reels here have. This is a really unique, incredible piece of technology that they developed. But I'm kind of set in my ways. I've been using certain reels, and that's pretty much where I stuck all my life with what I have, because pretty much everything you see here was made many, many, many moons ago. And I still use them. They're still functional, they work well, and they do really well. So long before I had a boat, I didn't get a boat until, I didn't start fishing the flats. Let's back it up. I didn't start fishing the flats until 1997. That's when I bought my first boat. I bought it down there at Dargo Boat Works in Donna from Rusty Dargo. I had a Dargo 170 Scout. And when I purchased that boat, that was the first boat that I ever had of my own that I could actually put in the dock, go out to the flats and fish. Any other time before that, I always had to go with somebody that had a boat. And usually it was a friend of my brother's that had a boat. And that's basically where that show water that you see that's in the videos comes into play, because he had a show water just like that one. A little bit different setup, but same thing, 21 foot. And originally when we first started going out with him, he had a bass boat. He had I think it was a Ranger. It was a Ranger bass boat. And took that out a few times, but that bass boat didn't do that well in the flats out there. You can only go so far. We used to just go right around Bird Island. That's why I fish Bird Island so much. I've been fishing Bird Island since the 80s. This goes back to the 1980s. And when I was growing up, and I was in junior high, high school in the early 80s. And so he had that Ranger first, and that's what we'd go out in. And then one time we got out there, got pretty much overheated the engine, because it's not designed to it doesn't have a tunnel on it. I mean, it's not designed to get in the flats. It's not a flat boat. And we overheated the engine and blew the head gasket on it. I think he had a 150, I want to say, on the back of that, or a 130 or something like that, or 140. And so that's when he was looking into another boat. And then this is around 1984, and that's when that happened. So that was the end of my boat rides out to the flats, which was just very minimal, because that bass boat could only get around just right on the edge of Bird Island. You couldn't even get to the backside, because it couldn't even get in that shallow of water, because it had a, I don't know, 25-inch or 30-inch drop of pitch on it. So not like the ones now for the flats, which are 20 inches. That's what pretty much everybody uses out there on the back of their motors, on the lower end units. But anyway, so he ended up buying, I guess he went up to Port O'Connor, and he got a show water like the one that I have there, but he matched it with the color of his truck, which was a Chevy baby blue truck, so it was the same color as the truck. And he put a 175. The biggest motor you could get back then to hang on a flats boat was a 175. pretty much everybody out there had, you know, an 88, a 90, a 100, a 120, 115, and then 140 was the big dog. And a few people had 150s. And then when that 175 came out, that Johnson Seahorse, that's what he hung on the back. And that boat would fly. I mean, it was scary. It was scary, you know, because it was a fast boat. But one thing about the show water, these old show water flats boats, is they don't have any side runners that run down the side to keep you on the straight and narrow. You know, like my Dargo, all the Dargo Scout series have it. I don't know about the new ones that they make now. I can only vouch for the ones that they made in the 90s, because that's what my boat was. It was a 90s model. But they have these runners that run after the bow comes down, and they have like a little 2-inch runner that runs all the way to the back of the boat. Well, that gives you your stabilization, so when you're going and you make the turn, you don't slide. This boat slides, so you always got to watch that. It's you know, I don't have a big engine on the back, so I don't really have a problem with that, but you know, there's been a lot of accidents out on the water with those kinds of boats. But I got a 115. It does what I need it to do. It gets me out to the shallow, and I get up in the shallow. It's no speed demon going in and out, but it works perfect, because whenever you start adding heavier stuff, you know, putting weight on a flats boat, it's a trade-off. You have to give up something to get something. If you want better performance, better speed, then you're giving up getting into shallower water, because it's just, you're just putting more weight on the boat, and it's not going to go as shallow. The draft's going to be heavier, and the boat's already heavy enough. I mean, I don't know how much that boat weighs, but it's heavy. It's probably about, I'd say, 1,000-pound boat right in there somewhere, pretty close to that, if not over 1,000 pounds. So it's already heavy enough. And then to hang a 500-600-pound motor on the back, which would be like a 175 to 200 range, you know, you're going to give up something. But anyway, that's going to be another story. I'm going to do something. I'll do it on the boat. And today we're going to be talking about reels and where we got to, and where I'm at this point of where I fish. I used to fish a lot of artificial, but I didn't have a boat. So back when I was growing up, we used to fish on the old Queen Isabella Causeway back when it was still standing. I think the Port Isabel side is still there, but they destroyed the island side years ago. I fished off of that for years with those little tandem rigs, and used to just fill up the ice chest with sand trout, because you know, you can keep whatever size, and we'd be cleaning fish, you know, all night long and into the next morning, you know. Caught plenty of trout. That's what we mainly caught. Reds every now and then. But back then in the day, off the old Queen Isabella, it was big for trout. I mean, trout like you wouldn't believe. The only things that were small were the sand trout. Whenever you caught speckled trout, they were big. I mean, the fishing has changed. It's not the same as it was 30 years ago. There's more fish in the bay. So we have to protect the resource that we have. We should have been more responsible back then, because it just seemed like that it was that it would never end. And because, like I said, when I used to go out with my brother's buddy, we'd just go right around Bird Island, right there, go put in the evening right before it got dark, and we'd fish till about midnight. And back then you could keep, I think 15 was the limit on speckled trout, if I remember right. It was either 10 or 15. I think it's 15 back in the 80s. It was 15. So there's 3 of us in the boat, and we'd all catch our limit, no problem. And they were all big. They were all 24s. And there wasn't anything under 24. You're not catching all these little ones like you always see that I catch in the videos, and then you catch a big one here and there and every now and then. So we've kind of overfished it. And that's not just a one person, it's a cultural thing. It's what we've done down here too. Because this used to be one of the best kept secrets, was the lower Laguna Madre. I mean, when I talk to some of the old timers that are even older than me, when they used to go down to Boca Chica Beach, used to go down to South Padre Island Beach, fish the surf, all the reds that they'd pull out of the surf, we're talking are anywhere between 3 and 4 feet long, you know, right in that range. Just big monster bull reds. And you only see that every now and then, but they used to catch them like that all the time. That's back when there used to be a ferry before they even had a bridge, and they would ferry everybody across, and there wasn't nothing but a tin shack out there and a few restaurants and a few shacks to live in and whatever. That's long before the island was ever developed to what you see today. But what I'm just saying is, everybody thought that it would never end, and you're talking, it's not just this generation, it's a generational thing that's been going on for generation after generation, even before I was born. Well, I mean, we need to be smart about the resource that we have out there, and because it is limited, and I can see it because I've fished it for so long. It may not be for somebody that's new that fishes it now, you know, and they think, oh well, this is the way it is. That's not the way it used to be, you know. So we need to protect that resource. I mean, only keep what you need. I mean, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. Back in the day, we used to fill up the ice chest, bring it home, and we'd have a freezer full of fish, you know. Don't do that. I don't do that. I just catch what I need now. Most of the time they go back, but then I keep, like this last trip out, I kept the ones because I'd already eaten what I had, and probably the next trip I won't keep anything on the next trip when I go out, because I still have fish. Because we, you know, just keep what you need. That's what I want to stress. We need to get better with protecting our resource, because the incredible resource that we have of the lower Laguna Madre is, you just don't know how lucky we are to have that here in our backyard. I mean, that biodiversity that's out there, and it's a super saline environment, and the fish survive and thrive in that. We just need to be better stewards, and it takes all of us, you know. But enough on that. Let's get into the reels. So as you can see here, I've got a lot of reels. These reels date back from when I first started fishing all the way up to what I currently have on the boat right now. And some of these I still use to this day. You right there, puppy? Don't fall off. No, Chica? You okay? Lay down. You're alright. Good girl. So before I had a boat, it all started with fishing off the bank. We used to fish Boca Chica Beach a lot back in the day. I used to fish Padre Island Beach. I used to fish the jetties. I used to fish wade fish up and down Highway 100 long before that Port Isabel High School was there. And we'd wade out there and catch a lot of trout right in that area because where it slopes off. I mean, I fished that, and I don't think I posted that video, but when I was down at Port Isabel the other day, on that video that I did for Cullen's Island, I fished that area, and I didn't catch anything. I mean, it's just amazing that it used to be full of fish, full of trout, because it has a real shallow, and then it has a nice little slope that drops off into deeper water, and they used to run all along that edge, and you just had to wait out there a little bit and cast and get it right over that drop off and work that edge. And it used to be, back in the day, it was good for speckled trout. You'd always get your limit out there. And I think all I caught was skipjacks, I think, when I was over there. But like I said, I don't know if I put that in the video. I don't think I did. I think I just did everything that I did at Cullen's Island and Long Bar is what's in that video. Because I was going to do one because a guy had requested Long Bar. Well, when I went over there, even though it was a double low tide that day, it was still underwater. So we have a lot of water in the bay. You couldn't even see Long Bar. It was still underwater. I was fishing on top of it, drifting right across it, no problem. And I caught trout. I caught a couple of keeper trout there, and the rest of them were small. But that's where it started. That's how I used to do it. We would go and fish off the banks, because like I said, and then if we got a chance to go with somebody that had a boat, then we'd go out. But mainly bank fishing, and that's how I started in all this. A lot of surf fishing. So we'll start off with my surf rods which I still use to this day when I go to the surf. I haven't done a surf video, and I haven't fished in the surf probably in about 5 years. But when I was living down in Brownsville, I used to fish down at Boca Chica a lot. you know, down there on the jetties, around the cove there, and up to where that cut goes into South Bay. And so let's put it this way: I haven't been over there since SpaceX is there. The last time I fished that, SpaceX wasn't down there. I think they had just bought the land, and they had a trailer house set up out there, and that was it. So I really don't know what it looks like, other than what I've seen from videos of what people have posted. I get the update on the app about how they're always closing the beach, so it kind of deters me from going down there to do any fishing, because it seems like you get over there and then they close the beach for whatever test that they have to do, and then you can't really do anything, and you're waiting, and then they open it, and then no sooner than they open it, they close it again. So things have changed on that aspect. So I don't know, maybe I'll do something, because I used to do a lot of fishing off the jetties on the Padre Island side down at Isla Blanca Park. You know, so maybe I'll do a video there on that side. I love the Boca Chica side more than I love the island side, because the Boca Chica side is just so pristine. It's undeveloped. I think there's maybe like 3 beach houses down there. It's just natural. I mean, the beauty of it. And I'm glad that I got to spend a lot of time down there before SpaceX came to town. I mean, SpaceX is good and all, and I mean, it's good for the economy, it's good for the country. But I'm just saying is it disrupts the recreational time that you have over there. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see. Maybe I'll go down there and do a video. But from what I've seen from people that have been there, every time they go, they can just get a little bit of fishing in, and then somebody comes and runs them off because they got to do a test. And which I understand. You don't. That's a liability. You don't want anybody around there, because if something blows up or falls out of the sky and kills somebody over there fishing, I mean, you're talking multi-million-dollar lawsuits. So I understand. You know, I mean, you know. But enough on that. But anyway, when I used to fish the surf, and which I still will, I'm going to go back and do some surf fishing videos. My biggest go-to ones, well, which are these are my main ones, are my old Penn 704Zs reels. This is a super old one, and it's still just as functional today as it was when it was built in 1950. Nothing wrong with it. Made in the USA. Right there, stamped. And this one was made, I think, in 58. I believe is the stamp date. I want to say on this model, 58 model. And all I've ever done to it, it was old when I got it. It was already used and passed through many hands. I didn't buy this new. Well, actually, you know what? I did buy this new. I take that back. I did get this. I think I got it from my grandfather, and I have the box still somewhere that it came in. The other one I didn't buy new, but yeah, I think this was a present that was given to me. But this is a really good reel. It's really excellent in the surf, heavy duty. There's always going to be the thing between bait casters, spinners. Fishing is a matter of preference. I'm no expert. I'm just a fisherman. I'm not no captain. I'm not no guide. I'm just a guy that likes to fish, and I love fishing, and I fished for many years. So it's kind of like for, how should I say, like a car. People have their preference, you know, and you buy what suits you, and that's what you do. I do have some Penn open face reels, but I use them in the surf. That's what I use in the surf, which that'll be another video. Whenever I do a surf video completely, I'll do it on all the surf stuff that I have, because I wouldn't mind getting back into doing some surf fishing. I used to enjoy it. I used to camp out down there on the beach and spend a few days and just fishing the surf day and night. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good memories. But this is an excellent old reel. I don't know what they make nowadays. I'm sure they, well, I do. I take that back because I have one. Actually, and it's not new. But I'm sure they make these bigger. You can get them in different styles. This is a graphite series, and this is a pin 5500 series. This I used in the surf too. This is my bigger reel, and then this would be my smaller action one that I would use when I would be surf fishing. And this is, I use this one plenty of times out there, and it's a good one. This graphite series was a good line. I really like this. The only one I didn't like, which I don't know what happened to the reel, I had the small one, the 3300 series. I don't know where it is. I guess somebody needed it more than I did, because I can't find it. Because I was going to show it to you to show how that they evolved into what the pin is now that I have on my pole. I like these. These were made in the 90s. When I got my boat, I bought these. I bought all these back in 97. These are 97 models. I used to have two of these. 4400 SS, these are the 5-to-1 ratio, and the 5500 SS is a 4.6-to-1 ratio. So this is more for fishing on bottom, not retrieving your cork or not retrieving a lure. Basically, really not retrieving a lure. I mean, you can probably get by popping a cork with it, but it's still going to wear your arm out trying to crank it in. It's more really for fishing with fishing on bottom with a weight. But this one, this is a 5-to-1. I had two of these, and this is what I used in the 90s and into the 2000s were these, until the reels that I have on my poles now, those were made in the 2000s and the mid-range 2000, and I'm still using those today. I still use this one. I do take it on the boat. You'll see it in the video every now and then. It's still good, but I just switched it out for my 430 SS because I love these 430s. And I put the 430 on there for like casting lures and stuff like that and everything. But this is a good reel. If I could find more of these that are in good shape, I would pick them up, because it's just, I mean, it's an excellent reel. It retrieves fast, and the drag works beautifully. So whenever you hook a big red, it doesn't hang up. It's really good. These graphite series. But they don't do graphite anymore. I guess this is, well, this might be, I think this is metal. I'm not really clear on how Penn does their new reels, because I'm kind of still stuck in the 2000s. That's where my reels go up to. Year about 2007, I think, is when those were made that I have over there. But anyway, let's get back to surf. So, all these reels are super old. But they still function just as good as they do. So I prefer my Penn's 704s, which I have the blue-green model, and I also have the black model that looks like these, but only big like this. I have these too, in this style, but they're on the poles in the garage, and to dig them out to show them. This was just easy to grab because I already had it off there, because I'm fixing to clean it. You can see how it drags just a little hair there. It needs a good cleaning and a good lube in the gears to keep it working, functioning good. But I got this one from my grandfather many years ago, and I have the box somewhere. I still have the original box that he gave it to me in, and it's a great reel, excellent in the surf. The Garcia Mitchells, these are made in France. I don't know if you can see that. Made in France. So this is a one that I've had forever. As you can see, I got a lot of surf reels because I used to fish in the surf a lot. I used to fish off the jetties a lot with these big reels. So I got these three here, and then I have another one also that's the same models, which is the 306 models. And these are 4.6-to-1 also, so they're not made for retrieving lures. They're not made for retrieving corks, really. I mean, you can use them, but you're still going to wear your hand out. They're just mainly for casting it out there on the bottom, then hooking something, and then slowly reeling it back in and controlling it. But these are excellent reels. These were made in the 60s. I've had these, I mean, what is this, 2022? And they still work. No issues with them. You take care of them, they'll last a lifetime, and they pretty much lasted me my lifetime. Great surf reels. And this is when Abu Garcia, there's a little note here, this is when Abu Garcia was, and where Garcia and Mitchell were still one company. I think now, I think they're separate. I think it's just Garcia. I don't even think Mitchell is on the brand anymore if you buy them. Because I think they still sell them, but they're cheap. You get them at Walmart, and you can get the pole and the reel for, I don't know, 30 bucks or 60 bucks or 50 bucks or whatever. They're not made like these. These are solid cast aluminum bodies with solid steel brass gears in them, and some of them have steel gears. But excellent. They've stood the test of time. Next ones. These are more Garcias, but these are the ones that you use for your lures or your corks. This is what I moved up to. Actually, you know what? I have two types here. Actually, three types on these. I have the high-speed one, which is the 400 series. The two types of high speed. There's a 400 series, and I want to say I have another one, which is the 300A series. So, still function today. This thing was made in the 60s, and it still works just like it did when it came off the shelves. The only thing with this style of Mitchell. This is the Mitchell one, Garcia, but this is the one that's made in France, so they kind of do things differently. I don't want to say backwards, but they do it differently. The bell's on this other side. You see the difference? You see how on our American-made reels, see how the bell opens? It opens this way. Well, the French, you know, they got to be different. So it opens this way, you know. So, I mean, that's something it takes getting used to flipping it the opposite way. Because you're used to just flicking it and going like this. Well, you got to learn to use your left-hand side to do it, to flick it. Because it flicks left instead of right. Like even the modern ones. See, they flick to the right when they open the bales. But these are good reels. They're supposed to be high speed, but this just goes to show you back in the day. I want to say this is a 4:1 ratio 2. I don't think it's a 5, even though it says it's high speed. But the advantage of these, I use many different ones. This is the 400 model, the 300A model, and I think I have a 206. I knew I had it. And then this is a 206. 206 style model Garcia, and it still works. Nothing wrong with it. But what I want to point out about these guys, that I like about these guys, other than that the bell is backwards on them, is these quick disconnects. One thing that the French were innovative on long before we got into doing this, is the quick disconnect. I mean, of course Penn did that, but what Penn didn't offer, I want to show you these things. Pins were always quick disconnect too. You could just push in here and you could pull them right out. And so, you know, they were on that, but Penn didn't have this feature where you just have a quick disconnect and you already have another line spooled, ready to go, and you just pop it in. And you don't miss a beat, and you restring your pole. And they're different sizes too, so for different yardage, depending upon what you're fishing, is going to determine which one you're going to use on these guys. Look, I think I have one that's shallow. See, like this one. Look, I can show you the difference between the two here, so that you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. You see how this looks like a normal spool? And then look at this one. See how fat that one is? That's for just some small line. And so you don't put that much line on it. It says that it is for the best results. Well, they give you the line and the test that you're supposed to use. But this was something that was pretty innovative that I thought that the French really came up with. But it never caught on over here. so it kind of just died on the vine. I don't know if they still use it today. But I thought it was always pretty cool about these Mitchells. That's what I liked about them. That you could just pop the spool out, and you could have, like, say you have a 300-yard one, a 100-yard one, 200-yard one, and just real quick, in and out, restring it, and let's go. So that's something that I like about these guys. Yeah, just a little fun fact there. Like I said, it never caught on in the United States. But anyway, so in this series line, that's what we have. These are really good reels, and you can see this one here, a lot of wear on it. This got used a lot in the saltwater. Used to use this one a lot. Used to use it a lot off the pier, down there at the old Queen Isabella Pier at night, under the lights. Caught many a trout on this reel. So that's my Garcia Mitchell collection. And then, of course, what I've always used, pin. I mean, I'm a pin guy. I've always been. My favorite pin until I got the slammers that I have on the Poe now was always the 430 SS, and I got a bunch of them. I have the ones for the bottom, like if I'm going to bottom fish with weights, because I used to do a lot of night fishing when I had my other boat, my Dargo boat. I didn't do a lot of day fishing like I do now in the videos. That's just something I started doing when I got this boat, when I restored it and got this boat. Before, my main thing was fishing at night. I'd go out late in the afternoon and pick a spot, and I'd set up there and I'd fish on bottom at night, and then I'd fish the early morning and come back around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. That's how I used to do my fishing. And I want to do a video like that, because that's how I used to fish all the time. And you always caught a bigger quality fish overnight. You didn't catch as many, but whatever you did catch, it was going to be big, you know. And I did that many years, because I used to, the job that I'm in, I used to close a lot, and so I was always working 3 to midnight shifts and all that stuff, and so I was always up later at night. Back in the day. But these are good reels. These were made in the 60s and the early 70s, and I still use them today. I have one that I keep on the boat at all times, well, along with my slammers. Actually two, one for the lure and one for the bottom. They're high speed, 5.1 to 1. The new pins are 6 to 1. This is a 6 to 1 ratio. Like I say, I don't really know enough about this one. I've only used it a few times. It hasn't grown on me. I always go back to my older stuff, because this is what I've always used. And like I'm telling you, fishing's a matter of preference. You do what feels natural for you. You know, what works for you. You know, I mean, some people like bait casting reels, and I mean, it works for them. I mean, it doesn't do a thing for me. I had a few bait casters, and it never really grew on me. I always went back to spinners, and I still use them to this day. As you can see, look at the collection that I have. How many bait casters you see in here? None. I probably have 1 or 2 in the garage over there, and they're the old ones too. They're the old Abu Garcia ones, the old maroon looking ones. I don't have anything modern, which won't say that maybe, hey, one of these days I'll change to that. But just, this has always worked for me, so why would I change? I mean, I've always been delivered results with what I have with this setup. So I'm kind of like a person, like I get set in my ways, and that's the way I fish, you know. And that's pretty much anybody. I don't think it's just me. I think it's pretty much anybody, because everybody has their own way of doing it. You know, there's no set thing, because everybody wants to look for this set formula that this is how you catch fish, and that's really not true. Anybody that tells you that, they're not being truthful with you. You have to develop your own technique. Everybody has their own technique. Everybody has their own way of doing it. Everybody has their own way, the way they string up their lines. Everybody has their own way that they tie their hooks. run their lures through the water. I mean, like I say, you can't say this person's right, this person's wrong. It's just like I say, you have to do what works for you. And this is what's worked for me. And I've caught many a fish. Many a fish. And it still works to this day. That's why I still do it. This is how I was taught when I was a kid, and it just carried over. You know, taught by my grandfather, by my father, you know, and then what I've learned along the way as I fished. Here's another, well, let's just finish up with these. So for my bottom one, I love the old 712 pin, and it's still nice and crisp, made in the USA. Excellent reel. Still perfectly functional. And then also for bottom two, if I want a little bit smaller size, I go with the these are the 704s, or no, these are the 710s. I think this is 712. So this is the next size down from that. They're both 4-to-1 ratios, but this is just a little bit smaller setup of this setup. So, but I don't use these to cast, or I never use these to cast lures or to cast a cork and pop a cork. I've only ever used these for bottom fishing, or just with a hook and just tossing it out there and with no weight and let it just free floating. That's what I use these for. The ones that I've always used for lures are the 5-to-1 ratios, and that's going to be the Penn 430 SS's. And I got plenty of these. I got a whole line of these. I got some more somewhere. I don't know where they're at, but I have them. And I still carry those. I got two on poles over here that I carry on the boat that I switch out. And these are the ones I usually use for when I do lures. I haven't done that many lures lately because everybody does lures. You know, there's videos out there, so I don't really make. There's plenty of material out there. I don't see what I could add to that. You know, because you have so many people. I mean, you got a lot of people that do fish nothing but artificial. And there's a lot of techniques out there to learn from and to pick up and to develop into your own and to make your own. So I don't really know how I could add to something like that, which, you know, in the future maybe I might do a video on nothing but artificial, fishing artificial. You know, my game is popping the cork. I've always loved popping the cork, whether it has an artificial on it or not. I mean, I can do a setup like this. This is a setup that I found out there in Cullen Bay here just a couple of weeks ago. I guess apparently it broke their line, they hooked something, and it was just floating out there. And I picked it up. So you can see where somebody took a mauler here and they put some kind of shrimp on it. I'm not sure what type this is, who makes this, but I have DOA. I use DOA, and I got a ton of artificial in there in that tackle box that I haven't used in years because I've been popping the cork. But like I say, I don't know what I would add to what you already see that people are doing out there, you know, with artificial lures. Yeah, there's just so many out there. So I think what I'm going to stick with mainly is fishing live bait and doing that, and I'll probably do a video every now and then on artificial. I do have tons of artificial. I mean, I got tons of it here in the garage. I got tons of it. Because like I said, a long time ago, that's all I used to fish was artificial. Tandem rigs, that was big back in the day. Cocoa minnows, the old worms, the old salamanders. I've got all that in there. Top water, wake bait, you know, everything. But that's for another video. Because like I say, there's a lot to talk about. I don't want to get rambling, which I already am. I'm going to try to stay focused on reels and setups that I have. This 430 SS is a proven winner. Pin, you can see this one's got the miles on it. I've used it plenty of times, but still just as functional as it is. It's a 5-to-1 ratio, and it's perfect for out there popping the cork. It's perfect for out there doing lures, casting lures, and artificial bait. And it's standing the test of time. The only downside to this thing is the most you can really, to get its peak performance out of it, is 10-pound test line is the max you can put on it. I like 12-pound, which is what I'm going to talk about line here in a minute. I've been messing around with different types of line lately. I'm a big mono guy. I mean, I'm not going to hide it. Everybody fishes mainly they fish, I think, braid. I have braid right here. I hate braid. I hate it. Well, it may not work good on this. This is braid. I do have braid on this reel here, on this 430 SS. And what I don't like the way it spools. So I don't think that these older reels were designed to run braid because they're so old. I mean, they'll spool them up and you can cast them, but I don't think they get a peak performance out of it. So that just may be the my hang-up, that I'm not seeing that. You know what I mean? I think it's a line, and it's really not the line. It's probably the reel, more than likely. That's really probably what the reality of the truth is. But like I said, I'm set in my ways, and I like my reels. And I like using these reels, and I'm going to use line that works really well on these reels. And mono has always done well. Granted, you have to change it out after every third to fourth run out there, because it does get a lot of wear and tear. So it doesn't last as long. But I like the way it's stretched. I like the stretching. Some anglers don't like the stretch. They like, well, I'll get into the line and we'll cover that on the stretching and stuff. But I just love mono. That's what I grew up on. That's what we always used, and that's what I know. But I've used braid a few times, and it hasn't set well with me. And I got fluorocarbon on. I had it on 2 reels. I already took it off 1. So I switched over to fluorocarbon here a while back, and it's a good line. It's a good line, but I'll get into talking about why I went back to mono. All the fish in this last video of drift fishing the mud flats in Rattlesnake Bay, every one of those reds was caught on mono. Every one of them, from the 20, all of them. That's all I use. I use that 260 setup, pin setup, and it has 14-pound mono on it, is what I have on that line. And I got the line here that I'm going to show you. It's a line that I've never used, and so far I'm pleased with it. I'm trying a different type of mono, but I'll show it to you guys. But these are good reels. I mean, they probably make better ones. I'm not sure what they get on the new ones. Probably 250 bucks. I want to say probably $300. I really don't know what they sell them for. I haven't gone over and priced anything. I think on this one, I think I paid $100 for this reel. I bought it from a Bass Pro Shop, and I want to say it was 100 bucks. I really don't remember. I mean, I bought it last year. I've only had this reel for about a year. And I should have got the next size down. This is the, what series is it? This is the 4000. And I've caught some trout with this, and I've caught some reds on this one, but it's too, to me, it's too heavy to be popping it all day long. It works great. I mean, it's smooth. And it retrieves fast because it's a 6-to-1 ratio. Real smooth. But it just doesn't feel right in the hand on that 8.5-foot pole that I always use, because I like 8.5 for popping corks. For throwing lures and stuff, I use a 7-foot or 7.5, mainly a 7. I like a shorter pole for tossing lures out. But for popping corks, I love the big 8.5. If I could get a 9-footer, I do have a 9-footer, but it's a double section, and then I have one that's a triple section, and they're 9 feet. I don't like the sectional poles. I like a solid core pole that's solid. That's what I like to fish with. But those 8.5 inshore extremes that I use, they work phenomenal out there for popping the cork. High winds, it doesn't matter if it's high wind, it'll pop it no problem. You can cast it a mile. You know, but this is a good reel. It's just, I should have got the next model down, and I probably would have been more pleased with it. So I went back to my old slammers. is I took this one off and I haven't really used it because of that reason. Because it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel balanced. It's off when when I'm popping the cork. I don't know how to explain it, but it just doesn't feel right in the hand when I'm using it. So that's why I took it off and it sits on there. So I don't really know what to get on the new ones. I'm sure they still make this line, but I'm sure they call it something else. Well, I'm sure it's probably the same thing. These are pin fishers, or spin fishers, or whatever they are. These are the original ones, and I'm sure they still make that spin fisher line, because this is a fierce line. This says fierce, and then they make a battle line, and then I don't know, they make something else nowadays. But back in the day, this is the only line that they made, which was your pin fisher. I think pin fisher is what it is. It's pin fisher series, and that was the only line that they made. And like I said, I still use the same reels that I've used since I was a kid, because they still work. And you take care of them and they'll last a lifetime. They still work just as good as the day they came out of the box. I mean, they may not be as pretty. Some of them may not be as pretty. They may have some salt corrosion on them, paint wore off on them, but the functionality is still there. So you can't go wrong. And I think back in the day, these reels were only like, I don't know, $45, which was expensive back in the day then, especially when you're only making $3 an hour, you know what I mean? $3 or $4 an hour, or $5 an hour, whatever the pay was way back in the 80s or in the 70s. I forget what it was in the 70s. I was just growing up, but whatever my dad and my mother made. But these are excellent reels, and if you can ever find them, I'd snatch them up if you can find a good one, because they last forever. All you gotta do is take care of them, grease them, and they're ready to go. The graphite series. Let me talk about the graphite series. I love this reel. I used to have two of these that I used to carry on the Dargo boat. I had two of the 4400 SS's, and I had one of the 4300, which is the small version, which is the new version of this one, of the 430. They went from the 430 to the 43, and they're 5-to-1s. They're graphites. They're quiet. They don't make no gear noise, and this is an excellent reel. I don't know what happened to the other one that I had of this. I know I used to have it, but I don't have it anymore, so I don't know where it ran off to, or where it disappeared to. But the graphite is what they moved to. They moved from making metal bodies to graphite. From in the 80s, I guess these came out in the late 80s and into the 90s was what this reel is set up. Because I bought mine in the 90s, in the late 90s, and they were still making these. And no sooner than I bought them, I think in the 2000s is when they started going to that other lineup, which is the Slammer. They totally redesigned the reel. As you can see, the difference in their redesigning. This you can flip to either side. It's left-handed or right-handed, whereas the old original pins, it's only left-handed. That's all you're going to get out of it. You're not going to be able to flip it to the other side. That's on any of these old ones. It just doesn't work that way. They weren't thinking that far ahead of time for people that like to reel with the other hand. But they made this optional on this to where it'll flip either way and you can reel it either way. But I love this reel. This is a good reel. If I can find some more of these, I would pick them up. The ones that I've seen on eBay are just not really in good shape. They take a lot of work to get them back to functioning. And here's an old classic too that I used to use. This is a German-made reel, made in Germany. Solid cast body, and it's called a Damn Quick 330. Yeah, 330 Damn Quick. German in their technology. They make a good reel. This thing has lasted. But the thing is, it's not a high-speed reel. It's only a 4.6-to-1 ratio. But it's a good solid reel. And it works. Caught many a fish with this one too. Watch out there, buddy. Don't fall off. You alright? Lay down. Good girl. So that's basically my reel collection. My my slammers, the ones that I have on the boat. Let me grab one for you and I'll show you. This is the one I use a lot of. So I still carry one of these. I still use this on the boat too. This is still used. I still use them. That's why I keep them greased and going, because when one starts to have an issue, I just change it out, put another one on, and then it gives me the time to work on the other one at the house. I love these reels, these spinners. They don't make these anymore. You can buy them online, but they're made in Japan and I want to say China. These are made in the USA. And if I would have known they were going to stop production of them, I would have bought more. I bought these at Academy back in the 2000s. And this is a 260 series. I carry a 260 series and I have a 360 series. Those are the two main ones that I use. And then I back it up with a 430 SS is my backup. Before, this was always my primary one on the boat when I ran the Dargle, but now that I'm in this boat with the bigger poles, I just love this setup. The way they designed this is the drag works so much better than the drag on this one. You can fine tune it and it works excellent, because sometimes the drag will stick. You got to watch, because I've lost many reds on a 430 because I had the drag too tight and didn't realize it, you know, at the time. Because when I'm reeling in, you can see it dragging a little bit, but then when they make that last big hard run to try to get their last power push off from you to get away, it would snap because the drag was too tight. But this one has this adjustable. You hear it click. It's beautiful. I love the drag. I love the way it reels. It's a 5.1 to 1 ratio, just like this reel, but the drag system is just so much better than it is on this one. And if you can find these, I've been looking for the American-made ones forever. You just can't find them. There's some that they sell online. They're made in Japan or made in China. I might want to try one of the Chinese ones, not the Chinese ones, but one of the Japanese-made ones. I might order one and try one of those and see. But this is an excellent reel. I've been using this setup since 2007, I think, is when I bought these. And that's what I've been using for a good long time. Excellent reel. And with this, I wasn't always using this pole. What I had before this, which the company went out of business, was Procast. I had an 8.5, just like this is, 8.5, but it was made by a fishing pole company called Procast out of San Antonio. They made them up here in San Antonio, and those were excellent poles. And that's what I had before I had this setup. It was the same length, but it was made by Procast, and I had this on it, and I had the 430s on them. But the company went out of business back in 07, 08, when the real estate economy collapsed and bubbled up and everything went belly up. Well, they went out of business and you couldn't get them anymore. And those poles, I think I still have an old Procast, but I've broken it so many times. At the tip, it's no longer 8.5, so it doesn't give me the flex and the popping that I need out there to really get aggressively with the cork anymore. It's still good for like throwing lures, but not for popping cork. So I use this setup. This is the one you saw in the last video, well, in all the videos. This is the setup that I use. And I've gone to using this style of popping cork system, mauler, whatever you want to call it. This is the Back Bay Thunder action, the Cajun thing, rig. And I have them laying here. I'll cover them right now on this. And I'll go over everything on those. But this is an excellent setup for me. Like I say, this works for me. I don't know if it's going to work for you, but it works for me. With this spinner on this 8.5 foot inshore extreme pole and this type of mauler setup. And I have like 3 different rigs because they're set at 3 different depths. When I look at the water, I see what depth I'm fishing in, and then that determines on which one of these I'm going to use because they're already preset. I have this one that's real shallow, then one that's a little longer, and then one that's a little longer than that. So it depends upon if I'm fishing in 3 feet of water, 2 feet of water, or, you know, 1.5 feet or whatever it is, you know. But excellent pole. I bought these poles probably back in 2017, these inshore extremes, and I've never looked back. I've got 4 of them now. I don't think they make this color. They're a different blue now is what they make over there, but they've been really excellent poles for me out there. It's a good pole. And it's not really that good for doing lures with this one, but for popping the cork, this is tops for me. Like I say, for you it may be different, but for me, I catch a lot of reds with this setup. All right, buddy. So we covered that. So let's cover, since we're talking about poppers, and then we'll go to line and all that. This setup is, like I say, I found this out there. I do have some setups like this that I have in the box with the DOA shrimp on them, and of course I've got the juice to put on them. You know, I got 3 different styles. I got shrimp, I got mullet, I got inshore saltwater, and of course I got the gulp action too for the gulps that I have. But this is somebody else's setup. Like I said, I found this out there on the lower Laguna Madre the other day when I was fishing in Cullen Bay. It's the same thing. It's a mauler setup with a weight, and the snapping of these BBs together is what attracts the reds. This is what attracts, when these things snap in the water, it's like the clicking of shrimp, and it fools the red or well, I fish for reds, but it fools the trout too. If you're fishing for trout, it does the same thing, because I've got plenty of trout on these too. That it attracts them to what you're doing over there in the water, and they come up to see what's going on. It drives them, it says it drives them crazy. I don't know if it drives them crazy, but I do know it attracts them, because I had the same experience when I was out on Wednesday, which is the video I just posted, when I was fishing that 17-inch and 15-inch deep of water. I was throwing this out there and popping it. The reds were coming up, and they were nudging up against the cork, because the cork, with the snapping of these weights here, were attracting them, and then they wouldn't even touch the bait, and they'd move on. And then some of them, of course, I capitalized on, that they took what I had on the end of the line, and of course, you know, I caught them. But a lot of them I missed, because all they did is just come up and they messed around with the cork, and then they were like, oh, well, it's nothing I can eat, and they moved on down the road. So this is pretty much what I run out there. These are all the different ones, and they're all pretty much the same. I prefer the orange and red color. I don't like this lime green color, or this other green. This is like a real light green, because it works good, but when the sun comes out and you got glare on the water, you can't see these, because the water is green out there in a lot of places, and you can't, these will not show up, man. Especially if you got a real windy day and you got good swells out there in the flats. It's hard to see these when you're popping them. So you always want to pick, if you're going to use these, you always want to pick the bright ones, because that's the ones that are most visible in the water when you throw them out there. And this one here, the only difference between these two setups is this is a cable style one. It's a cable, whereas this one's a wire, and it's stiff. I've caught them on both. So like I said, I think it's a matter of preference. It just seems like on the back bay Thunder ones, I catch them more than I do on this one, because it's stiffer, I guess. I don't know, but I have caught them on both. In the video, I've used both of them, and I've caught reds on either setup. My old setup were these. They used to have the little rattle trap in them, and you could shake it and you could hear it rattle. This is what I used to use before I went to this style of popping cork. And I caught plenty of reds on these too. So, and they make them in variations along with this. You can buy them, it doesn't matter. You can go to any fishing equipment setup, and they'll have this setup with this kind of cork on it too. So I used to have one. I tried to find it because I wanted to show you guys, and it was good. This was the thing. It was an electric one with a charge, and it gave the click the click sound. I paid an arm and a leg. I forget the brand. I don't remember what it is. I bought it at Bass Pro, and it was probably one this size or a little bit bigger, and it had an electric charge in there, and it only worked for so long. And when you, after you started it, you put it out there and you casted it, and it made that click sound like a shrimp. And I caught a lot of big trout on that setup. I was trying to look for it. I don't know what happened to it. I used to have it, but I couldn't find it because I wanted to show you guys in the video what it was. It doesn't work anymore because you need to go buy another one, and it's expensive. It's like 10 bucks for the thing, man. But it did work because I caught 26-inch trout with that one. I caught 25-inch trout with that one. I caught a lot of 24-inch trout with that one. But that's all I really caught with that. I didn't catch any reds. It didn't seem to attract reds, but it did attract the trout. And it had some type of electric mechanism in here. When you pulled it off, you could hear it. It'd start clicking. And then you put your bait on it and you throw it out there, and you pop it like you normally do, and that extra click thing would be like an attractant, I guess, in the water. But you can buy them at Bass Pro. They sell them over there, man. I forget the brand name, but Bass Pro has it over there. It was just something new that I hadn't seen. I figured, heck, what the heck, I'll try it out, and surprisingly, it works for big trout, for bigger trout. What else? So we covered all this. Let's cover the line. So, like I told you guys, I'm a mono guy, and like I said, it's a matter of preference. People, you know, are different. You know, I don't look down on anybody that uses braid. You know, I've used braid, but it just never has, how should I say, sat well with me. I mean, I just never solidified with me. That's what I should say. And it may be because of my reels. My reels are so old, and it may be that these were never designed to spool braid on them, and that may be what the really issue is. And like I said, I'm set in my ways. I like using my old reels. So line. My shock line, I've always used Andy. I've had this for years. And as you can see, I've used a lot of it. I've had this thing probably almost 17 years. I've had this a long time. It's a German line. They make it. It's a good line. Andy was always my preferred. Well, my original preferred one when you could get it was the old DuPont, the old Strin, the original, which you can't get anymore. The one that they sell nowadays, it's not the original line. But the original Strin was the best. That original DuPont line that they made back in the 80s, and that was some good stuff. And I ran out of that years ago, and you can't get it anywhere. I mean, if you can find it somewhere, they're going to want their weight in gold for it. If somebody's going to sell it to you, if they got a big old spool of that laying around somewhere. So when that DuPont kind of went out and they put in that new Strin line, I used it for a little while, and it's okay, but it's not as good as the original. The original by far is the best, but they stopped making that years ago. So I switched to Andy, and this is what I've used for years. It's the German line made by, and this is 12-pound. My preferred popping the cork is 12-pound test line. That's what I prefer, and that's what I've always used for years. It's just that 12-pound test line. It's not too thick and it's not too thin, so you can still get the distance that you need without losing the strength that you need. Because with the 10, you got to watch it, especially when you get a good sized red on there. The way they make their turns and stuff, they can snap that 10-pound test line real easy. And then I use a 40-pound shock, is what I use on all my rigs. I've been using that for years. I've had this line forever, and that's what I use, number 40 clear, for all my shock leaders out there in the flats. Lately, I've been experimenting with line, and I stopped using Andy. I think the only one that I have Andy on is the 430 SS, which is I got Andy on both those that I use in the boat. So I switched to this trilene, this big game line. It's not an expensive line. I mean, it's priced reasonably, along like the Andy is priced reasonably. This big game is actually pretty good. I was just using that up until I lost I think a few videos back when I was fishing, of course, Rattlesnake Bay, I hooked some big reds out there, and they snapped the line when I hooked them, and they made the turn, and their fin, their dorsal fin across the back, my line goes across there, and it just cut it. But this is actually good line, and you got to put an extra long shock leader on it, so when they do make that turn, it doesn't cut this line. But this is really good for the price. It's economical, and it works really great. It's a pretty good line. So then I'm like, okay, it's snapping, so I want to try fluorocarbon. You know, fluorocarbon is supposed to be one of the strongest lines out there. So I first bought this one and tried this one out. It's a 12-pound test line, and it's P line. And what this is a combination. It's an amalgamation of fluorescent or of mono and fluorocarbon combined. I guess it's a good line, but the problem I have with that and a true full-blown fluorocarbon, this is true full-blown fluorocarbon, the Cigar, is this is what I don't like about it. It's good line, but for me, I fish the grass flats a lot. This line sinks to the bottom and it gets stuck on everything out there. My mono never doesn't do that. You'll see in the last video, I caught everything on mono on that pole, on all those reds that I caught in the last video, and I had no issues of getting them in the boat. I didn't lose any of them. I didn't have a lot of grass stuck to my line like this. This sinks to the bottom because fluorocarbon and these hybrid fluorocarbon lines, I guess they say that the fish don't see them in the water. You know, that these are like basically invisible, which may be true. I don't really know the science behind it, but you know, they're probably right. But that's never been an issue with me where I fish. I've never had an issue that the fish had a problem with the line that they saw floating in the water. Because usually you're popping it, you're aggressive enough, it's making enough motion in the water that the fish isn't paying attention to that, and it's going straight to where that motion is because it's bait moving. And so I've been trying these out, and that's my only thing that I don't like. I'm probably going to take that last fluorocarbon off. I got it on that 360 slammer. That's the only one that I got left with fluorocarbon on it. I'm probably going to take it off, and I'm going to move to this one, because this is the one that I've been using, that I used in the last video. But like I say, for me, that's just my experience with it. I'm not saying that these lines are bad. It's just they don't do what I need to do. The way I fish, it doesn't fit my style of fishing, because it hangs too much in the grass, it hangs too much in the moss, it hangs too much on anything out there, because it sinks. It doesn't stay on top of the water, man. It sinks. It sinks. But other than that, it's a good line. And when you try to pop the cork, you're popping. It messes you up with your rhythm, because you got all that weight on the line that this is sticking in the grass and stuff, and you got to pick up all that weight, and you don't get a good enough action. So that's the issue why I'm taking it off and I'm not using it anymore. I'm not going to be using it anymore. I switched to this. I bought this years ago and I've never used it. I bought this probably, I don't know. And I noticed they still make it, because I looked it up online, and so they still make it. But I bought this probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. That's how old this box is. What are you doing? Hey, don't eat that palm. What are you doing? Cassie's bored. She's tearing up the palm tree there. Shredding it. But anyway, so I figured, heck, I'd try it. And this is it says precision winding, 15 times super tough. It's a monofilament line, but it's a specially made monofilament line. Let me just read it off to you. It says, Siege assures longer, more accurate casts and unmatched toughness. Advanced XV2, whatever that is, engineering lets you cover more water with sharpshooter accuracy. Well, I can vouch for that so far, because the last two videos that I made, the Cullinan video and this drifting the mud flats in Rattlesnake Bay, this is what I was using. And I had no hang-ups, I had no fraying, because you know how the disadvantage to, one of the biggest disadvantages to monofilament line is the memory. It doesn't have good memory. This has good memory, and I'm sure braid has superior memory. And these don't stretch. Braid and this doesn't stretch, because I do use braid. Even though I don't like it, I have one that has braid on it, so I know how it works. There's no stretch in the line, but I like stretch. That's just the way I prefer it. I like the line to stretch some when I set the hook. That's just me. But I can vouch that so far it's been living up to what it says on the back of this box. The abrasion, so far, I don't feel any abrasion on the line, but I've only used it twice. On my regular monos, I can only go like 3-4 trips, and then I got to replace the line. On the advantage with fluorocarbon is that lasts for a long time. I still have that on there, and I put that on there on that 360, and it's still good. And that's probably been on there since, I want to say I did it in May is when I changed it out. So what is this? This is October, and I'm still using the same line that I put on there. So I will vouch for that. That fluorocarbon does last long, and I don't have any memory issues with it. It doesn't get knotted up or anything like that when you do a cast. But I haven't had any memory issues out of this one yet. This is, you know, you do have memory issues. That's the downside to this. I do want to let you know, whether you use the Andy, you use the big game, or whatever mono that you do use, you are going to have a memory issue. Eventually it's going to get to where it's going to start to spool up on you, and what they call a bird's nest or whatever, you know. So that's one time when you need to start changing it out. When you start feeling the abrasion on the line really heavy, you need to change it out before it really starts knotting up on you. But I'm really impressed with this line so far. So before I go out, if I go out next week, I'm definitely going to go buy another one of these. And hopefully I can still get this same one, because this says it's Suffolk Siege line. I don't know. I don't even know if they still sell it. I know they still sell Suffolks. You can still buy it, but I don't know if it's this one or if it's just some cheap knockoff version that they make now. Because I bought this many years ago. I've had this and I just never used it. And it's been in the garage sitting out there, and I've never used it. For the extra line, I have other lines. I have OB line, and I have a lot of other stuff that I've never used that I bought years ago. Double X line and some other brands. But I'm telling you, I am really impressed with this so far. It really performed on the last 2 outings really well, and I didn't even use the other one, the one with the fluorocarbon. That just shows you how much I like that line. I stayed away from it. I just kept using that same pole, and if I had to go in a little bit deeper water, I'd cut the leader off and I'd make a leader and put it on there. But I'm really pleased with this, so I'm gonna spool up with this and try it out, and then I'll let you guys know what the ultimate line is. But like I say, for me, like I say, it's probably something different. Braid is really big. Everybody likes braid. I'm just not a braid person. I mean, maybe one of these days it may connect with me, and they're like, okay, this is the way to go, you know. But I catch plenty of fish doing it this way, and I've done it this way many years. Like I say, these are good lines, but what I don't like if I was fishing the bottom, no problem. For my bottom reels, I have no issue. This fluorocarbon, excellent. But for popping the cork out there, no, because it catches too much grass. It sinks to the bottom and it catches too much grass, so it doesn't work for me. It may work for you, but it doesn't work for me. I like the line on top of the water to be able to get the action going really good and well. I don't want any hindrances between me and the cork to perform the action, and that just gives me too many hindrances. That's been my experience with it. I've used it since May, and that's always been an issue every time that I go out. It's always got a bunch of seagrass on it or a bunch of moss that's caught to it, because it sinks to the bottom. And when I try to pop it and when I try to reel it in, it's stuck on the bottom and the cork goes down, and I pull in the big wad of grass. So no, I'm moving on. I'm going back to mono for now. So tools on the boat, which you've probably seen. This is getting long. I'm getting long-winded here. I got these work pretty good. I got this style. This works pretty good. Either one is good. It's just a matter of preference. I have them both because I like them both. I don't really have a preference. They work both good. Now, what I like about this one is it has a scale on it, and you can weigh. So you can know how much the fish weigh. On average, the reds that I've been catching, they've been anywhere between 6 and 8 pounds. I haven't been mentioning that in the videos, but they've been around, you know, this between the 6 and 8.5 pound range is what they've been on. But these are pretty cool. I like this. I used to fish a lot offshore. I used to, you know, go out offshore and fish. You know, go to the snapper banks. You pay down there for, what is it, the Osprey? I think it's the Osprey. I used to go out with those guys. Those are a bunch of hard-working guys, good guys. If you ever go out and use their services, always tip them, because those guys, they really work for their money, man. The guys that help you on the boat. So one time I bought these for everybody, because they used to always take care of me every time I'd go out when I used to do a lot of snapper fishing and stuff. I bought this down at what is that place in Port Isabel? That hardware store down there. They had these. They're the only ones that had them. And I think there was like, what is it, like 6, 7, 8, 10 guys that were on the boat. So I bought everybody around. And then when I showed up one day, they really took care of me that day, because this is what I handed to them when I got to the boat. I said, look, man, you guys work so hard. I see that you guys need one, because they had the shorter ones, and these are long. So I hooked them up, but like I said, they're a great bunch of guys. And I kept one for myself, because I was thinking I would never use it, because I have a short version that I always use, that I used to carry on my hip. And then once I got this is the one I always use in the boat. I don't even use the short one anymore. This one works really well to get the hook if it ever gets deep down in there. It's excellent. What else? Nice, really nice. That's something. That's an interesting subject. So, my fillet knives. These I have had forever. These I've had the longest, you can see. There's two sizes. I think this is a 6, and this is either a 9 or a 12 or whatever it is. But these are the old Rapalas, the old finish knives. I don't know if the ones that they make nowadays are just as good as these. I really don't know. But I bought these back in the 80s, and they still work today to fillet fish. Excellent knife. My first job I ever had, I took shop in high school, and when I graduated in '85, my first job I ever had was working for Custom Service Center. They used to be over there off of Ed Carey Drive, right there where that little strip mall where the next to the railroad tracks, where I think it's Wing Barn and all that is. Well, there used to be a big shop there that had a 14 bay mechanic shop, used to be there before all that was there. And that was the first job I ever had. And I bought this fillet knife. Of course, being a mechanic, you had to buy tools from the Snap-on guy. And when the Snap-on guy came along, they sell Kershaw. And I bought this from him. Oh, it's a Kershaw fillet knife. And I've used it ever since. Excellent knife. Bought it in 1985. So it still works. The latest addition to my fillet knife collection are these Bubba knives. I bought 2 of them. I'm not sold on Bubba. They're okay, but I don't see what the big deal is. What takes getting used to is the handles. I don't like these big handles, but I don't fillet fish for a living. Maybe somebody that fillets fish for a living, they see the benefit in this. I like this style of handle better when I fillet. It just, I mean, look at the, you know what I mean? It takes up a lot of your hand, and when you're trying to do the fillet, to get every piece off of that fillet, it just seems like this handle gets in the way. But maybe that's just me. But I do use them. Out of the 2, I bought one that's serrated, the serrated blade, and then I bought a standard one. These are the 2 there, and you can see which one gets used the most. This one. This one's okay. I don't hardly ever use this. Maybe to cut a few bones through or something, but I don't know. I don't hardly ever use the serrated one. But this one I do use a lot. As you can see how much it gets sharpened. But it's an okay knife. But I still will go back to my Kershaw and my old finish Rapalas to get the job done when I'm playing. I might invest in one of those. They make an electric version of this that has multi different size for thickness, because you see how these are kind of thick. I think these are really made for like bigger fish, you know, like really big fish to fillet. I don't think they're really made to fillet the small trout that I catch, and you know, those medium-sized reds and stuff that I catch, the reds that I catch. I think this is more for like really big fish, offshore fish, you know what I'm saying? I think that's really what they designed this setup for. But they make like a kit that you can get that has multiple blades in it. It's either electric or it's hand. And I might get one of those kits because the blades are different widths and they might be more flexible, so when you do that nice smooth fillet, it may work better than what this setup is. But that's the knife, the fillet knife, to fillet everything out when you catch it. Oh, how I sharpen them? Same thing. I bought this from the Snap-on guy back in the 80s. I used to be one of his best customers, man. And it's a multi-purpose stone, so it has the coarse, the medium, and the fine on it. And it works great to sharpen any knife, my hunting knives, all that stuff. Works really great, and I've had this forever. I don't know if you can still buy this anywhere, but I'm sure somebody makes something similar to this setup. It's called Smith's Tri-Hone is what it's called. I have another one that I also bought from him. It's still brand new in the box, and it's got 6 or 8 of them, and it's got a special bar, and then you got to line it up. I've never used it. It looked too complicated, and it's just been in the box. This is the one that works great, and I'm a simplistic kind of guy, and it's done a great job for me. I mean, it's already getting, oh, you know what I want to cover? I forgot about these. This is something I used to use back in the 80s. I don't use them anymore. But like I say, I'm a spinner guy. You may be a bait cast guy, whatever, you know, whatever. It may be different for you. I've always used spinning reels, and I've always done well. So why would I change? Shimano. Shimano is always on the cutting edge. I mean, they're big in bait casters now, but before they were big in bait casters, they made these series. These are from the 80s, from the early 80s. These are high speed. These are 6-to-1 ratio with ball bearings in them, reels. Back when everybody else were making 5-to-1 in the 80s, and these are 6-to-1. And what I like about these is they had this develop of this quick bail release, so you can cast without having to touch the line. They're the first ones that came out with that, and they're the first ones to put ball bearings in their reels. Whereas all these are gear driven. These don't have ball bearings in them. They're gear driven. But these really smooth 6.1 or 6.2-to-1 or whatever this is. And then it had this adjustable drag on them. Man, I tell you, at the old Queen Isabella Pier with the tandem rigs, boy, I'd catch two sand trout at a time with these babies. These were excellent reels, really, really good. I love these. They don't make these anymore. Good reels, good spinners. I like how the adjust is. But the problem with these is the plastic spools. So once you do so many thousands of casts, the spool gets worn here. That's why I don't use these anymore. So now when you reel the line back in, it doesn't spool properly like it's supposed to. And I haven't been able to find replacement spools for these. And that's the issue why these were taken off the line and I don't use them anymore, is because of that reason. But they still work, they're still functional. It's just an issue when the line gets re-spooled. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't re-spool it correctly how it's supposed to. And I think it's because this plastic, because they're plastic, they're graphite, and they were probably the first ones to do graphite too. So these are like graphite. Because look, one thing, so this is one thing that Penn did do when we're talking about graphite. Like I told you how I love this grill, this one. It's a graphite reel, but the spool is still metal. So I guess Penn saw the drawbacks to what Shimano had done, And when they designed their graphite lineup, they left a metal spool in there and didn't do a plastic spool. You know, that's the only downside to this, but these were beautiful, man. I really miss these. Man, you could cast a mile with these. These had excellent adjustable, easy adjustable drags, 6-to-1 ratio back in the day. I caught a lot of trout with this bad boy, with these two. A lot of trout, you know. I didn't become a flats fisherman until I got my boat in 1997. I never fished the flats other than going out every now and then with a buddy of my brother's, and he's the one that basically got me into flats fishing because I liked it. Once I got out there and I saw just the incredible vast openness of the flats and just the possibilities of, oh, try here, let's go over here, let's go there. Yeah, I mean, it's limitless. The lower Laguna Madre just has miles upon miles upon miles of flats out there. And each area can be different than the one that you were at previously before, even though you think it's the same, but it's really not. You know, it's got its own thing going on under the water. And that's what I try to put forth in the video. Yeah, I catch fish and I go out and I show you that I catch fish, that me and Cassie catch fish. But really it's about the day being out there. And that's what I really want everybody to take account of. That vast richness that we have, the incredible biodiversity that we have that's out there, the topography that you have is just incredible. I mean, like, you can fish mud flats, you can fish grass flats, you can fish just straight channel, you can fish sand flats, you can fish coves, you can fish inlets, you can fish guts. I mean, it's just incredible what you can, the type of areas that you can fish, all in just that one location. So I'm going to be doing more videos on different areas, because usually I'm just a creature of habit. My two favorite spots, and I've always said this, and I don't have there's no secret places. Everybody says, if they have their secret spot out there, it's just spots that you haven't fished. And the only way that you're going to know where the fish are is just to go and try them. Some days I catch them, some days I don't. But hey, I spent the day out on the lower Laguna Madre. You can't beat that, man. It's I'd rather do that than to be sitting at the house watching TV or doing whatever. It's just incredible to be out there. But that's what I can stress to you. Just try different spots. But I'm a creature of habit. I've fished Bird Island since the 80s. When I'd go out with my brother's buddy, we'd go out with him on his boat, and we've always caught fish there. Bird Island, Rattlesnake Bay, Green Island. Those three. I don't even really fish Green Island anymore. I did a video on Green Island. I hadn't been out there in a long time. I fish way in the back, in the flats, way behind there, more closer to the island. Basically, it's where the grass and the sand kind of meet. That's where I've done videos. Where you see where I fished east of Green Island. I think I did a video on that. That's where that's at. That's kind of where the sand ends and the grass line begins. And that's usually where I fish, but that's pretty far away. That's like 3 or 4 miles back towards the island from Green Island. But a long time ago in the 90s, when I first got that Dargo, I used to fish Green Island all the time on the front side. And man, I caught everything there. I mean, everything. The biggest trout I ever caught, I caught it there. Right out there where you can't even see the sandbar anymore. Because the hurricanes and the storms that we've had over the years, there used to be a long sandbar that used to run all the way, and you couldn't get across that cut once you got into that bay and that in front of Green Island. You couldn't get across there. You had to go back around to get back into the channel. Like, say you wanted to go down to Peyton's Bay or to go across and go down to Peyton's Bay, because it used to be all solid sandbar there. It's not anymore. It's pretty much all gone. There's hardly any sandbar left. But it used to meet there right at the channel, and there used to be a sandbar this way and a sandbar this way, and on this sandbar there's an old houseboat which is still there that sunk. You got to watch out for it. There's some markers there that you don't run over it. But you used to be able to see it at low tide. You could still see it sticking up, but it's still sitting there. I caught my biggest trout If I can ever find the pictures, because back then we didn't have digital cameras, but I've got pictures somewhere if I still have them. My biggest trout I ever caught, 31 inches, I caught it there. Huge, huge trout. That's my personal best when it comes to a trout. I've caught plenty of 24s, 25s, and a few 27s, but the only 30-inch or over 30-inch trout I ever caught, I caught it there, and I caught it back there in 1998. That's how long it's been. So when you see these people that are in chase of the one, I know what they're saying, because I've been there. I know. I mean, you have people, that's all they devote to, that go out on the water and they look for that 30 and up, you know, and that's a special kind of fisherman, I should say, because it takes a special technique, because you're always revising what you're doing, trying to figure out, because I caught that one and I've never caught another one that big. I've caught plenty of 27s, plenty of 25s, plenty of 26s, plenty of 24s, but and I caught a lot of those 25s and 26s are right there in Rattlesnake Bay. A lot of the 24s were on the backside of Bird Island when you used to catch them back there. You still do every now and then. They'll come in between Bird Island and Green Island on that backside, but on north, just right north of Bird Island, and then very far south of Green Island, there's a nice grass area in there, because you'll see people get off, anglers get off, and they'll triangulate it. They'll wade fish there. So that's always a good spot if you like catching speckled trout. I mean, I'm a reds guy. I like the fight of the reds. I like fishing the flats. I like going out looking for the reds in the flats. That's my game. It's always been once I got hooked on that, that's what I've always liked to do. You know, when I was taken out that first time on the boat and we went out and caught redfish out there, big redfish in the flats, I've been hooked ever since. And I like catching, you know, trout's okay, but I prefer going looking for the reds, hunting them down in the flats. And sometimes you come up good, and then sometimes you don't. That's just part of the game. But you're out there on the lower Laguna Madre. So guys, I'm going to cut it off. Cassie, you got anything you want to put on this? Come on. Oh, he's just sitting there being quiet. But like I say, fishing, this is what I use. This is my setup, and this is what works for me. You just have to work through to see what works for you. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has their own set, their own preference of line, their own preference of whether they fish artificial, fish live. I like fishing live bait. I've done artificial for years. I used to do it in bass fishing. I used to go to Falcon Dam all the time. Every summer we vacationed up there and used to always artificial fish for bass. Caught a lot of striped bass, white bass, black bass, flounder. I used to fish for flounder. I don't really fish for flounder anymore. I used to do that. Used to fish a lot down there to Roy City. We used to go to Roy City. This is back before the Talmay Park was even there. There was nothing down there. You could drive. You used to be able to get on the Laguna Madre Wildlife Refuge, and they still have the old road down there on Horse Island, and you could drive all the way out there to damn near where the mouth of the arroyo is. You could do that until they started running you off. And you used to be able to fish all along the bank there, and used to catch tons of flounder. I mean, right off the side of the bank, tons of flounder. When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go down there with my dad and the old Cutlass, 71 Cutlass Olds, and we drive. It just shows you could drive it in a car. You could get down there in a car. You can't do that anymore. But used to catch a lot of flounder down there, right off the drop off of the arroyo going out, and anywhere along there. Where the Talmay Park was, used to catch it there before they developed all that. I used to have a light plant, and we'd have a generator, and we'd go out, set up the lights at night, catch trout under there, and in the day catch flounder, catch drum, few reds, but mainly trout. Back in the day, a lot of trout there, man. A lot of trout was always a big thing. But like I say, times have changed. We just all need to be more aware of our resource and just only take what we need, you know, because the fishing isn't the same. I see it. I've been fishing, I've been angling long enough. I see it. It's not the same. The freezes, yeah, they killed some fish, but who does more harm to the fish is basically us, the fishermen. We should just keep what we need and let the rest go. But for the future generations that come after us, so they can enjoy the same things and have the same experiences that we have. It never gets old for me going out there. The next, I'm going to do one more on the boat, to set up on the boat what I have. It's just an old boat. It's nothing fancy, but I will put a video eventually together about the boat. It's just an old fishing flats boat. It's no high tech. It's nothing fancy, but it does the job. It does exactly what I need it to do. It works for me. Like I say, same thing with boats. Everybody needs something different. That's all I need. I need something that can get shallow, and that's a big enough platform that I can move around on and not stumble and fall over. And Cassie has plenty of room to move to. And that old flats boat works great. It may not be the smoothest riding boat in the world, but it's the perfect boat for fishing the flats down there. So me and Cassie, we're going to sign it off. But that's what I want to just leave you with is enjoy the day, seize the day out there. The fishing, yes, is good, but just being on the water, seeing the wildlife, experiencing the lower Laguna Madre. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. I hope I didn't get too winded and dragged it on too long, but I probably did, so I'll look at it in the editing, see if there's anything I want to cut out. But I covered a lot of stuff here, and I just hope it wasn't too confusing. I'll see you guys on the next one.